Hello, everyone. Welcome to LifeGuides Connect, our August edition. We appreciate you being here with us. You could have been anywhere in the world today and given your attention to so many other things, and you're giving your attention to us, so we appreciate it. I'm going to give a few moments for everybody to start piling in. Shout out to everybody watching on the archives out there in YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe, share with your friends if you found some of the nuggets of information here useful, because we like to share the information. That's what we're here for. We're lifelong learners. We want to learn together and grow together. And while everyone's popping in, I'll do a quick introduction for myself. I am Dr. Dave Hester, Vice President here at LifeGuides. My background is in cognitive neuroscience, as well as bringing behavioral change to organizations through data-driven practices. I am a servant leader, and I like to say that straight away because I get the pleasure to work with such wonderful people. So shout out to all the people working in the background, getting this going and creating LifeGuides Connect. We appreciate each and every one of you. To all the guides welcoming in, we appreciate you as well. So now that I've given a quick introduction of myself, I'm going to pause for about 5 to 10 seconds just to let everybody else file in, and then I will start the next part of our introductions and move on into our topic. All right, and thank you so much, Sarah, for the love it. All right. Yeah, no, keep us honest. That's what Sarah said, like keep everybody honest and we'll be good. So speaking of Sarah, I want to introduce her. Sarah has been practicing, introduce them. Sarah has been practicing yoga and meditation since 2015 and facilitating events since 2020. Sarah loves to help people regulate their nervous system by being a safe space to utilize tools that allow the body to calm. They get by with a little help from their friends, spending time giving back to the community, traveling to rivers near and far, and as well as spending time working in the garden. Sarah also engages in self-care practices such as, and if I'm butchering this, my apologies, Abhyanga. You gotta tell me more about that. Abhyanga, or watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Shout out to Sweet D, one of my favorite characters. Well, Charlie, all right, we're not gonna jump into that, but I love the self-care options. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today. All right, and now I want to also introduce Dane. Dane has earned real life experience in not only life management, but as well as in life experience and coaching. And during her decades-long career as an educator, mentor, and a coach, she's brought these personal challenges and relationships and shine a light on how family hardships and illnesses have led to her investigative strategies and tools to heal. And I like to highlight that, to heal relationships, because it's never over. There's always a way. That's my motto, at least. It is always Dane's passion to use her continuing quest for knowledge and support with similar life challenges. So she's here to support you just as well as Sarah is. Thank you so much, Dane, for being here. This is your second time, I believe, on LifeGuides Connect.
Old timer.
Okay. Yeah, well, we like to say well-seasoned. Well-seasoned
Yes.
is
I like that better.
You like that better? We'll go with that. No worries on that. So let's talk a little bit real quick about what we are going to dive into in a moment. So of course, you saw from me the title cards and you registered. Thank you to everybody who did register. We see that wellness is a broad topic with many different components. So today we're going to be focusing on how emotional wellness and healthy communication in relationships can lead to more happiness. And so we plan to talk about how our life perspectives towards happiness has changed as we continue to grow, and the different kinds of relationships then and now as it relates to our stories. So with that, I want to pass it right over to you, Dane, and just hear a little bit more about your experience.
Hello, thank you guys for joining us today. My story is a story about spasmodic dysphonia. It is very dear to my heart, and your voice is who you are. That is how we communicate with each other. When that is taken away from you, it causes you stress, embarrassment, and you have to actually reset relationships with friends and co-workers, so that you can learn to live with your new normal. So my specific communication disorder was spasmodic dysphonia. I was diagnosed in July of 90. My voice just started to go. Now, I was a divorced single parent teaching high school. If you're teaching, you need a voice. The doctor that diagnosed me said, there's no help. You have to learn to live with it. So that understandably did a number on my self-esteem, and it also affected my happiness, not to mention my relationships. So being the stubborn person and advocate for wellness that I am, I started searching for help. So my first venue that I got help from was a therapist, and I did meditation and voice exercises, but it really only worked for a little bit. The voice progressively got worse. Then I did research, and I found that there was a new intervention they were using, Botox. So I would get shots of Botox into my vocal cords. The Botox, what that does, and it's not the same Botox you put on your eyes, it's medicinal Botox. So it being injected into the vocal cords prevents them from slamming together. So when you have spasmodic dysphonia, you have a very shaky, broken voice. People can hardly hear you. So the Botox shots I got maybe every 3 months. Now, don't get me wrong, they were a godsend, but with Botox for 3 weeks, you have a very low, breathy voice. Then the next 3 weeks or so, it's normal. And then after that, you start to lose your voice. So that was as good as it was going to get. I began to get very frustrated by having to have these shots, and we had to have the dosage go up. So I did research, and I found a surgeon who developed a procedure that would basically, the easiest way to explain it, I was rewired. So I went to UCLA Medical Center to have the surgery. So they kind of just, you kind of get an idea of it. They take the bad nerve, cut it, angle it out of the voice box, and then they bring a new nerve down. In my case, it was your swallow nerve. So if they're going to take my swallow nerve, then I had to have another nerve take over that function. So luckily it all worked. And after about 6 months, I had a voice. Now I did this on June of 2021. When COVID hit, I wasn't able to go in and get Botox shots. And at that point in time, I made the decision that I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm going to do what I need to do to be the best me. And I did get up every single day, grateful to the technology, the physicians that gave me my voice back. So that's a little bit of my story, and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah now.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Let's hear your story.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dane. It's a really powerful story, and I'm grateful to hear it in depth. Um, so my journey with happiness and the way that relates to relationships and communication, I really feel that quote when you said, like, I just woke up one day and I decided I wasn't going to live like this anymore. Um, I'm 24, so whenever I was in high school, that was like 6, 7 years ago and longer because there's 4 years. Um, I like really cared about popularity and my like fashion being what everybody else's fashion was, and I really wanted to fit in and be cool. Um, as I get older, I feel like I am really cool with just being who I am in my heart instead of what I think I should be. But whenever I was younger, I had a communication style and relationship styles that were very much so of utility and pleasure. It was like, well, like a give and a get, which isn't necessarily bad, but in my case, it was inauthentic. And so I was happy in those years, my teenage years. I was creating myself by looking outside of myself. And so I was still the creator of who I was. But then I hit this moment when I was graduating and I was like, I'm going to change my identity. I literally asked myself, I was like, I'm going to either be a hippie or a skater girl, but I can't skate. So I think I'll just be a hippie. And something about that decision, like I was started being nicer. I was dressing differently. I like it was so wild that everything just started happening really naturally. But I just decided that I didn't want to be like a mean girl, or I didn't care about being popular. And I got really nice, like super nice. I love being a life guide. I love like hugs. I used to hate hugs. Um, and so that was a really big change. And so it was that moment though where I really just like started to look around and be like, how do I really want to treat people? And how do I really want to be seen? Do I want to be seen as somebody that has to like work their way to the top of this social ladder? Or do I want to be seen as somebody that just is social and is that? And I think that's a more whole, I've been way more wholesomely happy ever since that change started 5 years ago than I was the 4 years before that, and even longer before just growing up in public schools. Um, yeah, I was happy back then, but I'm way more holistically happy now.
Ending. I have so many questions about how, the both of you not only have made these changes, but have how they affected your relationship. So I think that's a good place to maybe start to touch on is, how's your relationships changed as you continue to heal and continue to grow?
Sorry, you go.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Um, my relationships have gotten a lot more authentic and a lot more vulnerable. I'm like able to feel my emotions and talk about my emotions, and I have relationships that allow that too. So my friends and I have agreements, even community agreements, where if I have something really hard to talk about, I'll ask if my friends have space, like, because if they're not in a good place to listen to what I'm going through, then I know that my energy is best served either asking somebody else or going back within in my own heart, in my own room to kind of see what's happening inside. So just that choice for me to be nicer and to be more caring and to not like defend myself and my heart by not caring about what other people thought has really allowed me to open up to people and open up to myself and have a more authentic style of relating. Um, One more thing that I wanted to share about that was I studied like a fair amount of philosophers and philosophy, and Aristotle has 3 types of friendships, and none of them are necessarily better than the other. They're all necessary, in fact, but one of them is called the complete friendship. And that's where you just love the person for who they are, where you don't care if you get anything from them or if they make you happy. Like you just love who they are at their core, not who they are for you. And the other 2 relationships are of utility and of pleasure, which is kind of what I shared that mine as a teenager were like, if this, then that, as like we had usefulness for each other. A lot of work friendships will be of utility. A lot of friends that you go out with will be of pleasure. because you're getting pleasure and usefulness from them. They're important and they're necessary, but they're maybe not complete. Whereas you get both from the complete friendship and more. And so I would say as I've grown, I've created more complete friendships than just of utility and pleasure.
Wonderful. I like the sprinkle of Aristotle in there, a little bit of a philosophy. And over to you, Dane, how have you continued to build healthy relationships, especially given the challenges that you had to overcome?
Well, as I mentioned, when you have a voice disorder, it is very stressful and embarrassing for you, but also your family, the people who knew you. You both have to learn to navigate the new you. So where I made a mistake, and this speaks a little bit to what Sarah's talking about, is I closed in. So I became a very different person. When I was at school, I had strategies, and children are great. If you just are honest with them and you explain and you draw them in and make them your ally, they'll help you out. So I got through teaching school. That was great. But the other relationships were hard. And I got to the point where I was very reclusive. If the Botox was working well, then I could be more outgoing. If it wasn't, I didn't speak. Or if I spoke in 1 word or 2 word sentences. I learned which words I could say fairly normally and which I couldn't. My mistake was not sharing with people and not sharing with family and asking them to support me in my journey. So how I really didn't start to deal with that until I came to the decision that I don't want to be this person anymore. I want to be able to have good relationships. I had a grandbaby on the way. I want to be able to speak and my granddaughter can understand me. I want to be able to go through a drive-through restaurant and actually use the drive-through. So I made a choice when I had the surgery that I was going to try and be happier. Be that person that everybody used to know. Well, I like to call myself Dane 2.0 because from whatever I've learned through that journey. So I think before I had the surgery, I had that affliction for 31 years. So now I choose happiness. It's a choice. It's not a destination. I'm still on my journey. So
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we're all on the journey, and that brings up another question for me as we're all working through this together, talking about this journey of life together. You mentioned asking for help. And sometimes when it comes to relationships as well as happiness, it can be challenging to ask for help. Sometimes it's even frowned upon in some cases. And so I wanted to ask, both of you, what is one tool that you use to ask for help? And I'll kick it off. For example, I ask my partner sometimes, hey, what's going on? Do you need the 3Ds, which are a distraction? Sometimes you need just some distance, meaning maybe distance from the situation, or do you need to discuss it? And that is my way of asking, not only for help for myself, but opening up and allowing someone else to ask for help. So what tools do either of you use? Let's start with you, Sarah. What tools do you use to ask for help?
I like to check in with myself first and know what I really need so that I can then decide who I'm going to ask. It's usually my closest people. Like my roommates are my best friends and my business partners and my bandmates. So we're like really interlinked. I do what I said. I just usually ask like, hey, do you have space to hear me talk? Or can you help me clean my room today? Even we like help each other clean. I just, it's like a straightforward answer to me. I just ask. And so, oh, well, and then so I have to mentally prepare sometimes because it's hard to ask. So yeah, I just mentally prepare and I tell myself that it's stronger to ask for help if I need it than it is to not ask for help because I'm afraid to ask.
Well, when my tools were with family, once I educated them because they didn't really know what was going on. So they were afraid to ask, and I wasn't the same person. So once I felt comfortable enough and not embarrassed that I had this affliction, that that made a world of difference with family and friends. Then I was able to accept help, and I learned that I'm still, I am the one who was feeling, depressed, embarrassed. They never saw me that way. They still saw Dane, their daughter, their mother, their co-worker. So I used education to help and really worked on being more accepting. And that had another positive effect for me because my empathy grew exponentially because I know what I struggled with. Anytime I came across somebody with the struggle, I was there. I knew their world, I knew their thoughts. So I think that made me a better person. As far as at work, my colleagues were very supportive. And like I said, my students, for instance, I had a little bell on my desk. So if I needed to get their attention because I could not talk over them, I just ding the bell. They all would get, and these are high school students who usually can be difficult. And then they would come in, they would close in around me so they could hear what I had to say. So once I educated students as well, it was great. It was rewarding to be able to still do a job that I loved. I mean, remember that first doctor said, guess what? You have this and there's nothing you could do about it. That was my world. I was devastated. So I made it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have to make things happen, even despite what we've been told, and that points to kind of the versatility of happiness. Meaning, there's different ways to find it. There's always room to grow. I know that we had kind of talked about a little bit in our green room about growth and accountability. So before we jump into strategies, because I know people are clamoring, they want strategies, they want ideas. I wanted to ask one side question about accountability. How do you stay accountable to building healthy relationships with yourself and with others? Because I think it goes understated that we are sometimes in a relationship with ourselves and we don't recognize it or we don't acknowledge what that we are. So how important is that accountability for the both?
Well, it's extremely important, and in my case, not only did I had to go back and rework relationships, and I'm continuing to do so because now there's another new me. So, accountability is extremely important. It's on me. If I want to have a relationship with Sarah, then I need to reach out to Sarah and I need to hold, whatever Sarah decides she wants to share with me, I hold to me, I help her if she needs it. I'm just, like I said, I'm so grateful and excited to be able to have different relationships now.
Too. You know that humans are communal species, tribe species, and we are uplifted and elevated by being around people that are good for us. And so I know that I want to be somebody that's good for us and it's good for the people that I'm around. And so that accountability piece is a like pure commitment to being that person. It's to checking myself whenever I have like thoughts of, just like everybody has thoughts and impulses. So whenever those come up, it's like I'm committed to being who I want to be and acting within my values. And part of my values is grace for myself and compassion. So if I fall from that grace and from that accountability, then the way to get back up is to be graceful with the falling and with realizing like, oh, that wasn't quite right. And I'm going to take accountability for that. Maybe it's in a conversation that something wasn't right. And just pointing out to somebody that I recognize that I could have done better. And hopefully, I have people around me that are also going to say, I could also have done better here, because I believe it's usually a two-sided thing that's causing a conflict. And so I just know that I can control me and I'm going to take care of myself. And if the people around me aren't taking accountability and rising with me, then there's something to look at there. And then the last part of it is accountability to myself, because I know that when I take care of myself with healthy eating and healthy sleep, exercise, I am more emotionally stable, which is going to allow me to have healthier relationships with others because I'm taken care of.
Wow, that's powerful, because if you take care of yourself, you'll have the capacity to support others, because we have to have the room, kind of the capacity to do that. And if we don't, one of my former colleagues, Phil at Good Intentions Counseling, taught me about the highest level of accountability in all relationships, whether it be your personal relationship, your business relationships, taking that level of accountability and holding yourself to it. But also, I love, Sarah, that you said giving yourself grace, because we can be hard on ourselves when it comes to accountability, where it's okay, we messed up. What does that mean? And is there room for failure? Failure is going to happen. Is there are you fostering a positive situation within your personal relationship or even your business relationships to know where things are going? And that's why I think it's important that we know when we have task conflict versus relationship conflict, because there are times where something just may have been done wrong. Well, that's simple task conflict that can be fixed, over time. Relationship takes a little bit more time, a little more focus. So now that we've, kind of broken the mold in how we're expressing ourselves and building relationships, talk about strategy. I know there are many strategies that we've talked about, but let's start with the mind. And Sarah, if you don't mind, just coming up, where is the mind's role in your strategy in building healthy relationships?
Well, the mind affects the body and the body affects the mind. So if I'm having thoughts of judgment and like blame in my mind, then that's going to cause tension and discomfort in my body, because it's telling my body that something outside of me isn't okay. But if I'm having thoughts of assuming positive intent for everybody, like, oh, somebody said something or didn't do something I wanted them to do, maybe they're just taking care of themselves, is a better way to think about it. I really do believe that happiness is a choice. And so like that first mental commitment that I made at 18 to change who I was, that started forming more holistic happiness for me. And so I think that it has to start in the mind, and then we do have to add the action of the body in after that.
Dane, how about you?
Well, as you can imagine, I've done a lot of research, and happiness was like elusive to me. It's like so fleeting too. And I thought, well, what is happiness? How can you be happier? So some of the research I did took me to neuroplasticity. So the good news is you can change your brain. You can choose to be happy, so you can choose to be happy. And what that really is you have to program yourself. And this is something that you don't do every once in a while. You do this with every relationship and maybe encounters that you have. And there's like 3 parts to that. So I'd like to share it with you because it really has worked for me, and it's simple. And I don't have to go to anywhere else. You know, I can do this myself in my time, in my space. So it's called Catch, Change, and Learn. So the first thing is be aware when you are being negative. Catch yourself being negative. So an example of that would be, no one wants to listen to me because of my voice. Very negative. Okay, how I should be looking at that is, what I have to share with you is important. So you're going to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And you're going to have to learn to do that all the time. And just like any other habit, if you do it enough, it's going to stick. So it's not a one-time fix all. It's a way of life for me going forward. So I'm with Sarah in the brain. It is a choice, and we need to exercise our choice.
Catching those thoughts is such an important part of it. And having something to fill the space is also an important part of it. So thank you for bringing that.
And to continue on about the neuroplasticity part, we've always heard the term, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That is false. Humans, no matter how old you are, you can learn something new, and not only learn, but you can unlearn what you've learned before. We may have tendencies towards unhappiness that have been ingrained in us based on our experiences, based on, if you ever had something happen to you and you hear a voice in your head and it's not yours, maybe it's your coach or your mom or something like that. And for positive or for negative, that voice is in your head telling you what to do. Or, and I know some people don't have that internal monologue, but either way, we are affected by the things that we've experienced, but we can always change. And neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons, it's so important that we give the body what it needs to create those new cells. So that means, live foods, that means exercising, that means also letting go of some things that you just, have been holding on for a while. We've mentioned the body keeps score all the time, but it's a wonderful book because the body does. It tells you, it kind of you hold tension in your shoulders. I'm speaking about myself, but there are sometimes other people who can empathize with that. But let's continue on the strategy bit. I love what you shared, Dane. I think that's helpful for us to know that we can change. And I talked about exercise. So what's the role of the body in creating, not only healthy relationships with yourself and others, but also just uplifting your happiness? What is the role of the body?
Well, you really hit the nail on the head for me, Dr. Dave, whenever you said that we have to give the body what it needs to help the neuroplasticity work, do its thing. Pardon my basic language. So giving the body what it needs, healthy food and exercise is a big deal. Whenever we exercise, we're releasing endorphins. Whenever we laugh and whenever we connect with people that we care about and feel safe around, we're releasing oxytocin and dopamine. I like to say get a full dose I teach laughter yoga, so that's always where I go to, but I do other things too. But you get a full dose with laughter yoga: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And so whenever you're giving yourself that, and a healthy style of dopamine too, like more than just reading a 2-second status, and then you get like a little burst of dopamine. That's not like the most holistic or wholesome way to actually help the body create what it needs from within, like by getting the heart rate up, or eating your vitamins, or getting a hug. I think it's like 18 seconds or 14 seconds releases like more oxytocin than just a short hug.
Well, exercise has just always been something that was very important to me. I mean, part of my career was that of a physical education and health teacher. So, very important. It's my release. It's my alone time, my reset time. And again, you guys have already said it, taking care of my body, giving it what it needs. So for instance, after my surgery, my doctor also is holistic, which was, I didn't think somebody that did that kind of surgery would be holistic, but he put me on like certain supplements that I should be taking so that we could ensure that my nerve regeneration took place properly. So exercise and nutrition. Now I gotta confess to everybody, I need to work on the nutrition part. So, but
You're not alone. I mean, I'll be 100% honest. We all do. I've seen that cake and said, yeah, I'm eating 2 slices. So it's all a work in process. What were you gonna say, sir?
One more thing to add, similar to how we talked about catching thoughts and changing them, is also catching when the body has a reaction of stress. So we have fight or flight, and we also have rest and digest. And a lot of healing happens in the body whenever we're in the parasympathetic nervous system state, which is resting, digesting. We're not digesting when we're in fight or flight or when we're stressed or when our cortisol is high. So if you notice somebody says something to you and that tension gets in your shoulders, maybe it's important to start to notice that and shake it out and take a breath. Or go and do whatever practice you have that helps you calm down, because that's when we're going to get the healthy hormones and the healthy systems in the body working properly. And that's something that so many of our guides can help you with too. All of us have had to learn these practices in order to be able to serve you all here today. So if you need help with figuring out how to relax and rest, that is like the other side of the key component of releasing the endorphins and then letting yourself be out of that, like moving, going, accomplishing, doing, changing state.
That's so wonderful. And I do want to also talk a little bit about, what I've just been coming across when it comes to dopamine diet. We talked about, yes, dopamine is good. We do want, different collections, so to speak, of neurochemicals depending on the activity we're doing. Dopamine diet is a fascinating way to kind of recalibrate yourself. And if you think about it, what is a dopamine diet? Well, we're getting it when we're getting those likes on social media accounts. We're getting it when in anticipation when we're about to get that piece of cake. We're getting it when we are, maybe when we're just having fun with friends and laughing, although there's a little bit of mixture of oxytocin in there. But the resetting of the dopaminergic pathways is so important because sometimes we get really, we're human. So we like something, we're going to consume it a lot. We're going to continue to do it. And it's important to rebalance, kind of reset the mind, reset the brain, so to speak, so that we can continue on. So that kind of dovetails us into the next one, which is emotions. I love earlier, Sarah said, you talked about feeling your emotions. And my kids tell that to me a lot. And it took me some time to understand what it meant. They were like, Dad, I want to feel my emotions. And, from a different time, that wasn't a thing. It was, whatever your emotions are, pile them up, put them into a magic 8-ball or something like that, throw them away. But now we're understanding that emotions are a big part of our life and we have to have room for it. So I want to go to you, Dane, and talk about where did the emotions take you, on your self-care journey and on your healing journey?
well, initially, I was very devastated. I was scared because what am I going to do to support myself and my son? Because almost at that point in time, we didn't have online work. It was face to face. And then it's almost like you go like the stages when you're diagnosed, let's say with a terminal disease, and you go through those stages. I didn't realize that, but there's also, you go through similar stages when you have some sort of disorder. So I went through those stages, and for a while, I guess I would call myself happy. But when it didn't work, it didn't work. So the surgery made all the difference in the world as far as being able to reset and reprogram me. And then by looking and researching, I found out how to do it. But the other cool thing, I think this is very cool, that happiness is contagious. So not only when we are feeling happy, people that come in contact with us, they're affected by our positive emotions. And I don't know what the study was. I read about it. It said that when you're positive and upbeat, people, 34% of people that you come in contact with are affected by your positive attitude, and they will keep that positivity with them for a year or so. So not only do you take care of you, you're helping others. So
Thank you. Sarah, I'd like to hear your take on the role that emotion plays in building happiness.
Well, happiness to me is an emotion. It's also a state of being or a way of life. So that is equal. You mentioned, you asked the question in a slightly different way just a second ago. About the answer. Hold on.
I was asking when I asked Dane, I was talking about how she identifies like the emotions as far as herself and through her journey of healing, and I know that's in relation to relationships. How does emotion support or even then sometimes hinder us when we're working in a relationship?
Yes. And we're talking about feeling emotions too, happy or sad or good or bad, because they're all going to come. And so if happiness is the goal and healthy relationships and happy relationships is the goal, then anything present that's not that is a blockage and is in the way. And it doesn't really work to stuff it down, because the more you like add pressure to stuff it down, it's actually like getting much stronger. And eventually like that lid is going to blow. And so that top's going to come out, or you're just going to live unhappy your whole life. So if you want to be happy and if you want healthy relationships, you also have to do the work to be happy, to move the body, move the mind. But we all have deep trauma too. That is, those sad emotions are valid and they make perfect sense. One thing that feeling emotions is not is thinking about it or talking about it. Sometimes talking about it, of course, is helpful, and we want you to talk about it. But there's a deeper element there while you're talking about where you get to feel. And I say get to because some people are like, oh, I have to feel. But if you can have that mental shift that we were talking about, taking the thoughts and changing it, you get to feel, you get to change. You're not stuck where you're at. You're not bound by whatever is holding you down. It's an energy blockage. It's that's what we call it in energy tapping. At least I teach EFT tapping, and that helps clear blocked emotions, limiting beliefs. So those emotions are valid. They probably have a reason, but they are just energy, and they do get to flow. They get to be energy in motion, emotion, and then that is going to open up space to actually be happy. And so every emotion plays a huge role in it. And if we want to get to one, then we might have to go through the muck of the other.
See what you did there with emotion. And I like that idea that it is motion, just like compassion is the action. Learned that from one of my colleagues, Mark C. here at LifeGuides. It's compassion is the action. And sometimes we have to be self-compassionate with ourselves. So that's a good way for us to continue the conversation into interrelating. you were talking about accepting those emotions that sometimes can be negative. And if anyone's been on, many of the news outlets, there's been a rise in people talking about toxic positivity, or even talking about how relationships are ultimately broken. So there's these interrelations where it's kind of a push and pull, on both sides. So when we are in, let's just use the framework of intimate relationships, how important is it to interrelate, and also to just be present with others when they're either going through something, or even when we're just having fun. Dane, with your experience, I can only imagine what type of interrelating you had to work with, with your family, with work, and how how did you overcome those hard days?
Well, I'm going to go back to us talking about doing the work. I realized it wasn't going to happen organically. I had to do the work. So, for instance, my mother has dementia and Alzheimer's, and she won't wear hearing aids, and I help care for her. So, imagine trying to do that particular job when you can only whisper and she can't hear or won't hear you. So, we worked something out so that I was able to help with her. But again, it's, I put all the accountability on me. I'm the one that needs to do the work and then be willing to receive the grace of other people. And to answer, I just never have gone back and thought about it, how I did all of that, because in my brain, there was no choice. You need to do this. You need to figure out how you could be effective, how you could be a good coworker, a good daughter. I just never stopped to think about it. It was going to happen. I was going to make it happen.
Wonderful. I want to take a slight shift in asking you the next question, Sarah, which is how do you like show up for people knowing that happiness looks different for everyone? Whereas, you may feel a certain level of happiness for an event or a certain stimuli, but someone else doesn't derive that same amount of pleasure. How do you manage that, or how do you support others regardless of their happiness level?
It's been quite the journey. It's been quite the journey to learn that we all are unique and have different passions. I've come to learn and believe that that's one thing that makes this world beautiful, is that everybody's happiness is going to be different. And in fact, it's necessary that everybody is inspired by different things and passionate about loving different things about life. If we all loved the same thing and we were all happy by building this one street corner, then we would only have one street corner, because that's what we all loved so deeply. But if somebody loves one part of the city and another person wants to evolve another part of the city or the relationship, then we actually have a more wholesome relationship and a more wholesome city. And learning to accept others and to assume positive intent, and to not assume intention. Well, to assume positive intent and then just not to assume negative intent really is such a big one. I go back to the 4 agreements. Don't make assumptions. It's kind of what I was hitting on there. So yeah, the interrelating with people that are different. I mean, my best friend and roommate is into like way different things than me. Now we're in, like, we do projects together, but their happiness level is lower than mine, typically. And it's patience. And it's love, and it's that commitment to accepting and being love every day with the people that I care about and that I really have a complete friendship with, and that I love deeply for who they are. In fact, I need people like my roommates that aren't so happy, I guess, because they remind me of pain and poverty. And we do political activism work to help fight that. But if it wasn't for people like that, then I wouldn't always think that things were bad, and things are bad, and we need to do better with our community and with our world. And things are good too, but I know that everybody sees the news, and that's why happiness is also so important, because the news feeds us a lot of things that are bad. And so the more that I can take care of my body and my mind and my happiness, then the more the world around me is going to be happy, even if I don't see it reflected in the news. Um, One thing that it reminds me of that I know I wrote in our notes a little bit is another Greek term, eudaimonia. It is another word for happiness, but it translates specifically to be possessed by a good spirit. And so my question to everybody is, what fills you with a good spirit? What inspires you? The root of the word inspired is inspiritus, to be inspirited by. So I feel inspired by healthy housing for everybody, by music, and by laughter. What is it that fills you with that good spirit, that inspires you to do the good in the world? And that is one of the answers to potentially your purpose, if you like to think like that, to your heart and to the true essence of who you are. Whereas I shared, I used to want to be what everybody else around me was to fit in. Now I'm like, wait, what actually fills me with a good spirit and inspires me? And so I like to think of it like that, and to interrelate, knowing that everybody's going to be inspired differently, and that actually increases beauty instead of diminishing it.
I have a comment that was so great, Sarah. And I think what blocks, or at least what blocks me, is control. So I found along my journey, when I started to give up trying to control the world around me, the people around me, once I let go of that, then it was, then it was great. Maybe I don't want to watch boxing on ESPN, okay? But my partner gets such joy from it that I enjoy his joy. That is something that I can do for him, right? I don't necessarily have to sit there and watch it, but I can support that's something he's interested in and share with. So I think letting go of that control, that instead of letting it come to you naturally, oh no, I gotta control this. When I let go of it, much better relationships also accept people where they are for who they are.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful in so many ways because it reminds me about the importance of loving people where they are, and then being patient and actually deriving pleasure from other people having pleasure. I mean, there's nothing I believe more fun than seeing kids have fun with each other playing a random game, or seeing adults, like whole grown men, playing a cornhole game in the backyard or something like that, and they're having a wonderful time, or spades or something like that, depending on what you're doing at the barbecue. And it's great to see people have fun. So in closing, I want to kind of give the floor to the both of you to share your closings. We appreciate everyone who's been here today. I've learned so much. Like, I'm definitely going to go back and run this one back in the archive and check it again, because there's so many nuggets of not only wisdom but love. And I want to caveat and say, successful, positive, intentional, and actually helpful love, because some terrible things can be done out of love. We know that. So it's good to make sure that love is purposeful. So let me give you the floor, and we'll move to closing. Let's start with Dane. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you again for letting me share this story. And I want to encourage anybody that may have some sort of disorder to please contact me. I have lots of resources for you. And my last words of wisdom here are not my words. I have a quote here from Maya Angelou, and it really spoke to me. And it's really what I have tried to do. And if you'll forgive me, I need to read it. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I will not be reduced by what happens to me. So there we go. And Sarah, I think you have something to add to that.
Yes, I'm very excited to share a little song. It's like jingle length, so I'll sing it a few times. The part about gratitude, it came to me to use the inspired by, to be inspirited by. It inspired me at the river, Rio Grande River in New Mexico. And then the part that's about grief actually came to me in a dream from an older elder Native American or African woman around a fire. She sang me this song, and I'm going to share both of them with you now. Laugh, sing, dance, and play, healing grief the ancient way. I said, laugh, sing, dance, and play, healing grief the ancient way. Oh, oh, I am grateful for the experiences I've had, but they do not add to or diminish my power. It was always right here, always right here. Oh, I am grateful for the experiences I've had, but they do not add to or diminish my power. It was always right here, always right here. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that song. I think we all needed to hear a little bit of that today. So wow. Thank you both. I see the love flowing. This is like pretty much one of the most interactive and love fest that we've had here with LifeGuides Connect. We've got some great things coming down the pipeline for everybody, coming with some of our new revisions to our sessions. So please check out our next session coming out in September. And I hope you all have a wonderful and sometimes wacky, in a fun way, Wednesday. And if you need anything, we are at lifeguides.com. Your organization cares for you, so care for yourself. Book a session. Thanks, everyone.